Ready to start the next panel? Networking is the coolest and nicest way, but then again, after our panel, you will have some time to continue networking. So we're going to have the gala dinner after a long gala dinner. You will have all the possibilities to talk to one another, exchange the business card, and build up your communication. But now, we would like to talk about the most interesting thing. We're about to discuss the future. We're about to discuss the future with the people who are not only projecting this future, but already implementing the future. We're sometimes keeping our eyes on the past. We're learning history for 10 years in the school time, then we discuss history in university, but we never discuss the future. And we cannot even define what future is and how it differs from the present time, how it differs from the past. And one of the definitions in the non-linear time concept, that in coordination with the past and present, the future is different. The future is another. So there are some of the flames of the future is actually already the owners of these future companies that we're about to see. So with your round of applause, please welcome Sergii Danylenko with his Midland company. Please welcome Alexander Tulko, the managing director of USB Capital. Dmytro Zarakhovych, the managing partner in UAPAY. Alex Momot, the founder and CEO of REMME, and Maryna, Kvashnina, the CEO and managing partner in EdenLab. Please take your seats. We have mixed up a bit. And our topic today is the disrupting technologies in Fintech. Can you give us now a secret of what particular share and part of your company in disrupting the financial sector? You're preparing some kind of bombs, or you're gathering the people to blow it all up and disrupt. So what are your share in disrupting financial sector? We can start, I guess, from this side. So good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alexander Tulko, and in Fintech, in our share, in the portfolio of our fund, we have a couple of companies that have launched in Fintechs. We've launched it 3 years ago, and by now our main solutions is now being installed in 6 banks, not only in Ukrainian banks but also into international foreign banks. And our solution is quite a simple one, but then again a complex one. This is a new technology. That's what do? We're now digitalizing the cards inside of the phone based on Android 4.0 and higher, and we provide the clients of the bank to pay contactless in the network. Everything sounds quite good, but then again, having this kind of experience and seeing what is going on in the blockchain sphere, what is going on in the innovation sphere, we wanted to add up to this solution a block where a client can see their balance in all of the liquid currency and still have 100% of the liquidity in the real world, in real time. And a lot of people all around, not only in Ukraine but in the West also, this is the last mile, how they call it, and this last mile is the final threshold that the cryptocurrencies are not used for the payments. If we take the structure of the US, and the data that we have, 20% of the adult Americans have crypto accounts. And if we take a look at the digital economy, and if we'll take the most popular client desk, they had 60 million accounts. Right now we're speaking about 80 millions of accounts. And if we give the possibility to the people to have this liquidity, to see that liquidity, what our assumption is that the cryptocurrencies are going to interfere our life even more. But in general, I think that our company is going to be the disruptor for this payment system. There's MasterCard and Visa. And those both were certified with both systems. Those are the disruptive technologies. This is a Visa and MasterCard and regulators trying to tune us down. But, I'm going to try to tune you down also. But please, Dmitry. Trying to be brief, we are Fintech. Our company is already the representative of the Fintech company. We understand both finances and technologies, and that is why we wanted to invest our money into technologies for financial sphere. And so we've created the financial campaign, and because of the different, we have already made a disruptive way. We have the first solution in Ukraine, so we created the OLX solution. Now Prom UI is now having the 30 marketplaces. No one has repeated it yet, which is good for us. And then again, in our group, the OLX solution is the first in the world. Thank you, Alex. So good day, everyone. My name is Alexander Momot. I'm representing REMME company, and we are providing solutions for the cybersecurity and cyber attack securities. And our main aim is, without using the logins and passwords, that the user only see one big button, logging. You can get the second factor, having another button like the OK in the messengers or in the native application. The main sense about it that most of the cyber attacks that are looking for catching up and phishing up logins are passwords. They're looking for the specific line for the password. When we taking away the password line, first of all, we improve usability because the clients don't like the second factors of actually, and lots of accounts have been stolen because of that. And we decrease the number of the possible attacks because there's nothing to sell, nothing to steal, nothing to fish for. And in February this year, we have collected $20 million. And in 2 months, we have already allocated, we will see the beta. And by the end of autumn, we're going to be ready for the industrial launch and industrial integrations of these solutions. But Alexander.
And for the bank, what is the value in your project? Because a lot of banks in Europe up till the present are using certificates. And our solution is based on certificate-less technology. Our users in Ukraine have a good experience in comparison with the West, but because in the West there are all technologies still working and log in with one click for the user and 2 clicks if it's with the second factor of solution. It increases the retention of the clients, and for the big banks, first of all, as European banks, it gives an opportunity to decrease the number of attacks, because usually they face thousands and hundreds of attacks, and it costs them $1 billion. Like, for example, a cost of the account when an individual comes into the Western bank and wants to open an account with this bank, the cost to open and maybe in future retain the leakages will cost the bank $200 per person if there is zero money on the account. If we decrease this amount by $90 or $100, but we hope that we are going to decrease it by 80%, and the bank will save the resources, and it will be convenient for the users. REMME company is a group of company which unites the IT services and product line. Most of our portfolio is fintech, and we specialize in credit area and in payment area. We carry out very complex engineering work in the fintech area. We would say that we have various projects. We have corporate clients, the banks mostly, and this is not disruptive projects, the CRN and BMN line, and this is very important, and that's from the current life. But from the future life, this will be fintech clients of non-banking sector and not in Ukraine. What is called alternative financing, the company which play the role of cutting off the business from the banking sector, the credit part, the payment card, and also blockchain development is also in the sphere of our attention. And this is on the crisscross of the blockchain projects and the fintech. And we have this third interesting segment, and this is not from the financial sector. These could be various areas, like, for example, B2B trade or energy sector, and they also use the fintech solutions. They include the scoring models and payment models cells into their operations. So P2P, this is what you generate electricity without the state, without the monopoly, and then you sell it to your neighbor, and you pay, and the transaction is made without the bank. So the state and the bank are being deleted from this model. Yeah, it's just like a marketplace. It's a big European company which unites the producers of the alternative kinds of energy. These could be solar energy, and the mechanism of blockchain carries out its standard function to provide the guarantees of all the parties. And there are lots of financial services now, mostly payment services, but then it could be accrediting in offline bankers. Can you imagine what's going on? You have been deleted from business. You were pushed out, kicked out of the business. Sergei? Thank you. I'd like to tell you in brief what middleware is doing. 99% of the companies in this world have been created without digital DNA. Digital companies such as Amazon, Google, Facebook, Apple, and such companies can easily go down from the digital world to our sinful earth. And you can see it how Amazon does it. They create their own technologies. They buy retailers. But the lift doesn't go up. Neither Walmart, nor Costco, and other retailers were not able to create something what could be equal to Amazon. Why does it happen? There are no digital companies. That's the main problem. The problem of the non-digital companies is that they use a long cycle of go-to-market. There is an idea in business. They create terms of reference, then give to IT, and then it stays there for months and years. When they use this approach, the cost of the mistake is very high. High cost of the experiment. The managers don't want to risk, because the best way not to make mistake is to do nothing. This is the way of thinking. This is the mindset. And the future is not linear. It is impossible to draw a straight line into the future. You have to palpate it by a lot of experiments, and you carry out them quickly, and the cost of the mistake should be minimum. My daughter went to the kindergarten today, and she fell down, she broke her knee, and then she got up and walked further. And this is, well, if we remind ourselves about the biology, and there are the cells with the nucleus and the cells without nucleus, and the cells with the nucleus have 5,000 more bigger potential to generate energy. What do we do in our company? We help non-digital companies to get this digital nucleus. We help them to make this leap from non-digital world into the digital world. What do we do to do that? We have our own technology, and there are our clients here, Corezoid slide processing. They have different approaches to the development. We say IT now are responsible for API, for microservices, for SLA, for the servers, for the hardware. But the business, people who have ideas, are using our platform, and they very quickly carry out all sorts of experiments. They have an opportunity to bridge the gap and leap from the non-digital world to the post-IT epoch. Dmitry, the question is to you, but the rest of the panelists are going to join in the answer. Apart from you and Sergei, everybody mentioned the blockchain. You didn't mention blockchain, but the specifics of the work of your company is that you are working with the micropayments, including other things. And what about the business of your company, how it is going to change within the next 5 to 10 years from now due to the existence of this technology in the world? I cannot talk about the blockchain because there is MDA, and that's state-owned. And there are people in this audience who understood what I mean. And the second blockchain, well, we are not discussing it proactively because it happened so. This is everything which has to do with the exchanges and the exchange offices. resources in Ukraine. Do I understand that you spend the taxpayers' money to develop the product based on blockchain for the state? Well, yeah, there is a product, but I cannot discuss it. Everything which is paid by the taxpayers' money, it's a public information. I'm a lawyer. My background is a law. We are going to protect you. You just give us a hint. I'm also a lawyer. Well, let us not discuss about the first project. The second project, we are providing services to cryptocurrency exchanges and exchange offices, and the main exchange in Ukraine goes through us. The third point, we have developed a smart contract without blockchain. We have implemented ESPROM, which de facto is the smart contract, but we didn't need any blockchain. For me personally, well, I am neutral to blockchain because I believe that at this moment, the technology we are working, the things we are working on, this is a expensive technology and it's a slow technology. This is my personal opinion because I have not seen how it was implemented quickly and cheaply. Classical. What is blockchain in reality, in the layman's language? So that anyone understands that there exists standard systems of development and storing information in a database, and we took database and we provide security for the database. And blockchain is coming from the next side, from the opposite side. First the security and then database. This is a different kind of storing information technologically. I would like to disagree as a proponent of blockchain. First of all, the expensiveness and the speed of blockchain is because there are mass media who use the data which are obsolete and outdated for a couple of years. Everybody thinks that the blockchain and Bitcoin can do 7 transactions per second. But in reality, there are several technologies which are being used, and this is SegWit and this Lightning Network, and a couple of other are being developed. Lightning Network helps to transact off-chain, and this looks like your solution. There are systems which look like the one working on blockchain, but there is no blockchain. And theoretically, the throughput would be like in Visa or MasterCard. But these are numbers which do not reflect the main essence of blockchain. The main thing about it is the censorship resistance, which does not exist in the banking sector. When I send the Bitcoin payment to someone, I can be absolutely sure that it's not going to be stopped, perused by the currency control offices. And if we talk about the legal side of the business, it gives an insurance to the business that this payment will be sent in reality, and it will be absolutely transparent. And the blockchain disrupts the existing financial market is exactly this opportunity to be absolutely sure the transaction will be effected. I'm going to disagree now. Let us not transform this discussion into a dialogue. I know that Maryna would like to say a few words, and then I will give the floor to you. Just so we have to put a round hole into a round hole and a square hole into a square hole. So we might use the most cheap solutions. And if your client understands the resources which are needed to not only to implement but to maintain it, so you should not use blockchain everywhere. And this is a good solution. And we have to tell the client where they should do it and where they should not do it. Sergei, do you put a square holes into round ones? But I'm not an expert in blockchain. You are the first non-expert in blockchain. The last mile is extremely important, Alexander, to make these technologies popular, vulgarization of technologies, if you want. And you, together with the banks, are doing it, or are you disrupting the banking sector in your project, by your project? At this point of time, yeah, we are working together with the banks because local regulations envisage that we have to work with fiat, and unfortunately, we cannot avoid avoid it. But nevertheless, we are trying to move forward. And my feeling is that if we do everything properly and if we create a critical mass, we will disrupt this system of Visa and MasterCard, and there will be a different system which will allow. And by the way, Visa and MasterCard, they also invest, and all the banks and JP Morgan, which was criticized, they were criticizing, but they have submitted 268 patents which were related to blockchain in terms of technology. They did it secretly. They are afraid because de facto blockchain technology destroys the monopoly to create the money, and regulators are trying to prove that this is not correct. That's bad. Commercial banks in the West are the extension of the regulated government systems. The money is being created through credits. If they are deprived of this monopoly, they will lose the money which they earn. So I can make a presumption that either we will come there and they either will transform with us, like Goldman Sachs, for example. They transform together with us and they become the leaders, but the majority will simply die on the road. Okay, thank you. We have been talking about identification, including the biometric identification. And one of the models of the future is what is being implemented in China, social rating, which is tied to biometrics and to which the banking accounts are being tied. And there is a very interesting idea circulating to create a crypto hryvnia. And I am an opponent of this project, and I will explain why. Because the state plus blockchain plus crypto hryvnia is totalitarianism. Because my account is being closed in one bank and I'm in opposition, I can open an account in a different bank. And there is competition, and the market decides whether I will continue working in my area and make payments. What are the risks which you can see in relation to blockchainization and unification of reading biometric data? And let me start as an opponent. You are talking about blockchain, I don't know why, as a substitute of money. I think blockchain is a technology. It's not a substitute of money. That's the first point I would like to make. Then to be able in any jurisdiction to carry out any activities, you have to comply with the requirements of this jurisdiction, that is with the legal framework. If we are talking about the financial business, financial transactions, there are only two types of financial transaction: payment and transfer. The payment means that you get goods or money, or the transfer is just transfer of a unit of cost. Within the framework of the financial businesses, and this is our opinion, there are certain strata, and there are technology as a strata. Then there is information as a strata. What should be transferred? What sort of information is being transferred where and to whom? And then there are legal requirements, legislation, and as a slot. And there are principles of accounting and reporting it. We are talking about the companies. These are the principle of accounting. And the last layer or strata is the movement of money. So in a business case, all these things have to be coincide, because if somebody tries to invent some sort of model or scheme, one of these strata might fall out. They are not being synchronized, and within the framework of a specific state where we specifically would like to carry out certain activities, we have to comply with all these conditions. That's one blockchain from the point of view of technology, which is taken out of the context of all these four strata, is something like a plane which will never start flying. And has anybody any opinion to this effect? I would agree that blockchain is not only finance. There are a lot of options to use it in a different way. But as for the impact, the total control of blockchain, this is a pseudonymic system. If you, at a certain point of time, have an address in the system, nobody sees who is behind this address. But if the state will come and will try to tie the address to a specific citizen, then the problems will start. So it depends on how the tool will be used by the state. It could be done differently. What they do in China, when I found out about it and read the concept, I was scared. I don't envy those people who will have a bad social rating because it will limit their activities. But they could have done it without a blockchain or using the centralized database. The reason for development of such products is not blockchain, and it doesn't give any advantages, but it's a wish of the state to control everybody and everything. And I'd like to add a couple of words on the concept which you've mentioned, when the state would like to create crypto grivna or crypto ruble. It's a nonsense in itself because in the basis of the technology there is the lack of control, the absence of control. It's a divided system, allocated system, where the control is being carried out by way of a great number of participants, and it's self-regulating system. So all these efforts on the part of the sovereign states will bring nowhere, will bring nothing, and this product will be not needed by the people. I will disagree with the colleagues when they say that it is necessary to have 4 strata and that it's necessary to comply with certain regulations in a certain jurisdiction. But in the basis of this technology of blockchain, which is related to money, because there are various types of assets, and some of them could be defined as digital money, cryptocurrency, because they are being used to transfer the valuables and to carry out transactions. And control on the part of the jurisdiction will bring about the following. It will shift, it will move into different jurisdictions, and it is impossible to control it because it contradicts the essence of the technology per se. And that's great because a lot of people and individuals are transborder in their wishes and their business. They don't want to depend on a regulator in Ukraine who is referring to the decree on foreign currency regulation dated by 1993. This is doomed. Stanislav, you mentioned the risks, and that sounded kind of alarming to me. You asked what the risks are. It's the question not about the risks, but about the opportunities. The question would be better formulated, worded if you say opportunities. What are opportunities? Because we know a lot of examples when the companies were destroyed because they preached this principle. Most probably Nokia was thinking that virtual keyboard will be not very convenient, but other people decided to use this virtual keyboard. But the question is, how could we find out whether it's good or bad by carrying out a lot of experiments to achieve the goal of your strategy?
One of my aims as a moderator is to provoke you. So I think that I've managed to do that. And another question now about not a mainstream technologies. You know, everybody is going to, like everyone, the world blockchain is going to be penalized or fined at the panels. So soon Fintech is going to be the mainstream lexics. So the following 10, 15 years, you know, a serious horizon of prediction, what underappreciated technologies by the mainstream media are going to influence significantly the markets, the financial markets, the markets of the virtual services, the market of the virtual services, or influence the tech spheres or the healthcare spheres? Okay, Sergei, let us start. Well, I can tell you about a couple of those techniques. First of all, the share credit cards. The technology that will give you the possibility to share the access for your credit and debit card. This technology gives you a very fast access to transactions. You choose a card in your smartphone, you can share the access to this card. The person is going to be in New York somewhere, the person takes their smartphone, touch the POS terminal, and is going to be charged here in Ukraine. The payment is going to be done. This technology is still being born. Technically, it works, but it's not a money transfer. This is the gray zone. This is the money, they never leave the country, but all of the other money systems, they are building up. Like they take this from the point A and they move them in point B, like Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, so on. But sharing the card is a different idea. You just share the access, you put the limits, and in the other part of the world, someone can pay with your card. Another thing is Visa and everything that is connected to the QR payments. Why it is interesting? This thing, it kills the hardware. You don't need the POS terminal, you don't need the CVV on card, you just need the smartphone. Something that is done very nice way in China, but cannot be exported to any other countries. And also another interesting thing, the so-called trigger cards, and follow the notifications. Okay, dear participants, we will have some time for a couple of questions, so please, if you have any questions, be prepared, try to formulate it briefly, nicely, in a good way. Dear colleagues, in framework of our solutions, we're already doing this. We have these share card technologies, but you have the NDI. No, it's not the NDI. It's just on the framework of our second phase of the project. We are going to work on the Visa technologies and car sharing. Sharing card is already presupposed. We're working on it, and say your smart contracts in applications you were doing. No, not smart contracts, not yet. We have a lot of different functionality that has been presupposed and changing. And for example, changing on the limitation on cash, when you can limit the target costs, target expenditures, like they install the app, and with the sharing card, you will give them, like for example, $5, and every 24 hours they can spend like on whatever they want. But you limit the sources of these expenditures. Like for example, your child goes to the catering service at their school, they can buy like water or salad, but as soon as they're going to buy cigarettes or Coca-Cola, the transaction is going to be denied. So this is the technological possible. We know how to do that. It's a bit complex technology, but then if after this going to have the changing, that we're going to implement it into life. Another moment, there's another technology, the hash graph technology. So have anyone heard about hash graph? Yeah, so this is the iCycling graph, the directed iCycle graph. Yes, there are different types of it, but in the world I have seen just a couple of hands here. The first conference has been last year or this year, the big conference on hash graph, and they're still discussing it, whether it works or no. And what is interesting, that in 2 years already in Ukraine we have the startup that already deals with this technology, and I think that this is a very natural development of blockchain technologies. The blockchain gives you the possibility to decentralize centralized system, but hash graph provides you with the opportunity to make every unit a holder of transaction, and even some system you don't need the transaction, so there is the peer-to-peer communication between the links in the network, so you are the subject of this activity already. And in Ukraine, in western Ukraine, because it's from the particular city, but they've already launched the network in a couple of the regions of Ukraine, so there's already a network when people communicate. If you remember, in the villages they had this kind of accounting book books when they've collected all the debts, and the people when come up once or twice a month when they have the salaries and they paid according to the checks. So it works in the same technologies, but the same way, but it all been stored in the smartphone of the user. So when they need to buy something, they buy with this virtual credit of trust. It gives you lots of problem solving because the internet and the banking systems are centralized. There are the main links like the biggest banks and the central banks. And in the internet, we also have it like this. We have the main servers, so on and so forth. But this technology gives us the possibility with the other technologies like the mesh network, the centralized internet, which is, by the way, also developed in Ukraine. And all connecting all this project, it can give you the general disrupt of the classical banking system. And for the countries in the Africa, when we have difficulties with traditional infrastructure, it gives the possibility to population to communicate without having the participation of the centralized institutions. And I would like to add up to that, because before that I had more of a comment, but I do believe that in following 10-15 years, when are we going to have the main changes? The biometrics. My assumption is that if nowadays our project is focused on emulation the cards in the phone, so the people are mostly, going to bed with telephones, they wake up with telephones, or you move with a phone everywhere. So biometrics in the following couple of years, we will need the phone. So through the biometrics, you'll be able to conduct transactions. You'll be possible to QRC. So you don't need any kind of physical device to do that. Okay, not about ideas, but about technologies. Dmitry, like, what can you give us? What is that under the NDA? Give us something about non-mainstream technologies. Okay, so couple of, let us say, thoughts about it. We're changing so fast that, trying to make predictions in 10 years is something that will not benefit you. When we've been thinking about the previous assumptions, then we have thought about a completely different situation that we are now. Everything changes swiftly. Another moment, speaking about the transaction technologies and blockchain, I hear some theses, some statements time after time that blockchain, this is the instrument to avoid fin monitoring or legislations. They're taking the technologies and they're trying to breach something all the time, trespass something. Like the state is bad, we have to trespass and breach some of the legislation, that this is a cool thing to do. I don't know whether it will work like that. The third thesis statement about the disruptive technologies, like you've said a good thing about the round and square things. If we take a look at the geometry, we can get the round shape into the square, but you cannot get the square shape into the round, and I would like to advise you not to do that. Thank you. Okay, Maryna, you're selling all of those bricks to people and they continue to play with them, so you're in the heart of this process. Maybe you can share with us. Okay, we will call this place the heart. This is a very good thing. I've been sitting here and listening to all of this discussion, this diapason of like this period of 10 or 5 years, and trying to measure the fintech market, and we already have these technologies to do that. We have all of these curves, we know these technologies, and they're now being tested out. Some are going to die off, some are going to introduce new business models, and the clients and the participants of all these systems will be able to use this. And after that, about the very standardized process, the credit and mortgages business, what can change this market significantly? All of what is the main worth of it? What is the value, the number of clients? So everything that is combined with the drastic decrease of the number of the clients is going to influence the credit market. Because what we already say, this is on the primary stage, the data points that the mobile operators are gathering, and we have our partners already, and your partners that are dealing with this question. But for the market of Africa is still being developed only in this sphere. They don't have the credit bureaus. They are the only resource for them for the scoring cards, or this enrichments through the social medias, payment systems, everything that is granted. everything seems to be quite known, but still already mature technologies are not available. The mature technologies that will change everything significantly. They're not only just being born. And I think this is a big significant part that is going to change everything. Another point is about the payment. So we do understand it's all about the cost on the transaction, which is important. Why blockchain technologies are already been mentioned in this context and, killing the payment system and so on. So this whole territory that everyone is watching around, so the transfers, we know the transfer device that works without the physical transactions and clearing technologies and everything that will help us to reduce the prices. Everything that is connected to working with big data, to working with the prediction analytics. There's a lot of startups surrounding this topic. Like everything can be mentioned here. The big project, a huge project, this Israel-American project that has a credit portfolio in $1 billion, not even investing $1 in funding. The scoring system that works only on PSP channel, the scoring the clients with credit cards of the other emitting banks. So this is the business model that is close to the technology that we all know. So they are in the shape like this. In my opinion, to be short, first of all, everything is more down to earth, but then again, I think that all of the main components are not going to change in our financial business and our financial processes, but the business models can change. The business models and the usage of the particular instruments and tools can change, only that they're still are now being on the primary stage of development. Thank you very much. And we've also mentioned the P2P crediting lines, but there are still the tools. For example, the venture investments that we've mentioned on the previous panel. And on behalf of the venture investments, there is another attack on the ICO projects when there is a different technology of allocating the money, and Alexander Momot is now representing the company that has been successful in that kind of allocation of the investment. So can you please tell us, in your opinion, those disruptive technologies and disruption functions, what kind of resistance they're going to meet on the classical regulators, and particularly in your case, what are the difficulties and challenges that you're facing? Well, from what I see, that's there is no that kind of resistance, especially on behalf of the companies that used to allocate venture investment, like the top funds from the volley of the world. When they want to allocate money through ICO, then they're still divided in two parts. The first parts of their investors, they're saying, like, how can you do that? Give us our money back. We haven't provided you money for that. And the other part is saying, like, oh, that's very cool. Everything is going to be tokenized, and everything is going to give us additional access. So everything is counted in us with access, not like the dozens of percentage. So when investors hear that, part of the investors there have the positive reaction, and some part of us have the negative reaction. But some people who have coming through the venturing capitals and have worked in the many years there, they are very negative about it. And I have seen that in our case, because maybe we could have allocated venturing investments, but we didn't manage to do that. Because first of all, when we had this idea coming up, to validate this idea, I visited all of our conference, not to ask for money, but just to ask to whether we have the need for this kind of solution, whether something that we've come up with has sense. And the problem is that we didn't have enough expertise in our market. So I had to turn out to the valley and to ask Vitaly Buterin. We need to ask additional companies and some of the accelerating foundations whether we have perspective. And I have seen the perspective there, but as a company from Eastern Europe, we were not really interesting for them. And we didn't plan to launch in the incubators as is usually done. So what we have planned to do was to continue going into the ICO. We had the real blockchain project. The blockchain has been used in us. Really, we have this blockchain economics. So looking for the venture money, understanding the opportunity was senseless for us. The speed of allocation of the investments in the crypto environment is just one conversation. conversation, because we have been talking for quite a long time already, and when I've said that I don't have my own enough money to invest the preparation of this process, two people who I've talked to from the very beginning, being very easy about it, being very fast about it, they have given me the money needed to continue the preparation project for the ICO. And I was really surprised, because I haven't seen any kind of interest from the venturing funds, from our venturing funds, from local funds, and from the foreign funds. And what is good and what is bad about this industry at the same time, that no one considers the risks. Everyone, for having this possibility to get a higher return on investment, they're ready to easily invest this money into the projects. It gives you a lot of problems, because there's also frauds, and because there are some investors that's unlike the classical venturing investors, they do not think about the horizon of 5 or 10 years. There's the so-called flipper. We have also, when we started the ICO, the market has fallen, and after we have come up to the after we had come into the market, someone has started to sell our stocks, and the first project that I've invested in was the Ether, and I waited for 2 years to sell it. I haven't even thought about what's going on this, and Ether has provided me with 1,000 access, let us say. And now the new investors, they're just buying blindly, and they just want to sell it in a week. So the qualification is quite low for the people that have joined the market in 2017. That is why the market of the ICO is absolutely different than the general classic venture market. And what is the problem for the company that has allocated ICO? And I think that we can face those problems also. What are the good about classical ventures? The classical ventures, they give you the possibility to find the contacts, to open some doors that is impossible for the countries if they've already been at the ICO and you have no connections in the so-called Ether mafia, so on and so forth, like the PayPal mafia, the group of the people who's launched Ether and other ICO projects. They have already gained a lot of money and controlled a huge share of the Bitcoin economics. So sooner or later, the classical investors and ICO investors will adapt. Like the people who already talked to in United States of America, family offices, head offices, they invest a small fund, a small share of their incomes to the ICO funds, to the crypto funds. As I've promised, I want to turn to the audience for your questions. Please raise your hands if you have any questions, and we will turn to you. We have, as my teacher has said, we have plenty of hands. Okay, we have question number 1.
Thank you. I'm in Hutzel, the Ukrainian exchange of charity, and we are interested in innovations, and we are looking for some solutions which will allow us to implement the technology of blockchain, cryptocurrency into charity, into philanthropy. If you could give us some recommendations and advice, it will be a great step forward. We are somewhere at the crossroads of the safety, security, and we are going to do that for you. It's no problem. And fiat payments, for example. I mean that conversion of non-fiat into fiat is a super idea. This is how the issues could be resolved in the open communication. Well, if there are no more questions from the floor, I will ask a question myself. Dear speakers, could you please tell us how much time the traditional banking still have to exist? Just a blitz question. And what is traditional banks? These are the banks, the guys who participated in the previous panel discussion, because I'm going to explain why I'm asking this question, because they are saying these are disruptive technologies, it's going to disrupt the market. But disrupt is the word which means, to blast. And everybody is talking about the blast, yeah? But 3 people mentioned blockchain when this panel started. If somebody has watched the this adventure film of 60, 70 series. I don't remember how many seasons there were. There were the guides who were using the Iron Bank, and when people were killed, these guys would come and say, maybe we can lend you some money. And this is the answer to the question. The banks are not going to disappear ever. In the way they operate at present, they are going to either get transformed within the next 10 years or disappear. What is telecom? It's this, like Kyivstar, for example, they all want to become the quasi-banks. They are trying to get the licenses, and if one has the record and you, with the help of the Kyivstar, can use it, they will disrupt the standard operation of the banks. To a great extent, the banks in a lot of jurisdictions have a monopoly to attract the funds and to issue loans. But as soon as the erosion of these activities is going to be to start, and other operators like Facebook through FEMIS or Telegram also talks about its intention of buying a Visa. As soon as it happens, I think that these transborder transactions, when on transborder level it will be possible to lend and place the deposits, this erosion of the banks will start happening, and they will resist, and local jurisdictions are going to regulate, but they won't be able to disallow the transborder crediting and taking the deposits. To a great extent, what is a bank? It's an intermediary. As I've mentioned before, the bank has a monopoly, which is sanctified by the state, and they make money through issuing loans. But if these functions are going to be given to other institutions, the banks are going to get transformed. My answer will be never, ever. If 1,000 years ago the banks were lending, and the competency of the bank is to lend and to get interest rates, and there is a myth that the banks want to work on technologies. They don't want to do it. They want to focus on their core competence, risk management. And if somebody will resolve technological issues related to that, that will be great. So the bank, as the structure which manages the monetary risks, will always exist. The investors who proactively, global investors who are financing the Ukrainian projects, and they were saying that credit business has been lost by the bank globally. This part of crediting I'm talking about, the financing, it was open for the alternative financing companies. They have 1 billion large portfolios. For the last 2-3 years, the majority of those have acquired banking licenses. I've been following that. And at this period of time, also the payment business also has been taken away from the banks, PayPal. And when you specialize, focus on one, core activity and on the sector of the market, you have to do it better than the banks do. But the payment function has not been deprived from the banks. But at the previous conference, I said, and how the banks have built their relations with the finance companies, either buying licenses or some partnership, or just taking the share capital. This structure changes, relations change, business models change, but the system is going to exist. And the deposits is the area where the banks are a monopoly. As far as the attraction of the funding is, just the banks do it all over the world. I was impressed by this discussion by the following, that the data which was given by Alexander, 26% of adult population of the US uses cryptocurrency. This happened within the previous decade, since the article was written on the Bitcoin. The cyclical graph, which is directed in the and gives an answer to the question whether it works or not, and the DNA works, but this technology is going to be work. But it depends on how we efficiently copy it. And there was an overarching issue in this discussion, and that was the convenience. This is the first requirement, and it is what one has to pay attention to while the solutions are being developed. The convenience for the user, and whether your business model is fitting into the regulations or not, whether it is risky or not, technological risks or legal risks. But convenience is the first and top priority, and one has to think about it when the product is being created. Thank you very much. Applause.